Hey y'all, today I get to talk to Chris Sanchez, aka Wanted Peak on YouTube. We talk about music, wrestling, um, great gear, and yeah, you'll learn how Chris got so good, how he practices. In my opinion, you got Victor Wooten, Evan Brewer, and Chris Sanchez. So please listen, like, subscribe, and yeah, leave me some comments and let me know who you want to hear from next. Thank you so much. When did you know music was gonna play a part of your life?
Honestly, probably when when I was growing up, my dad would have a lot of Black Sabbath and AC/DC, like just movies playing, and I always thought it was so cool just watching the bands. And then I went to my first concert. I think my first concert was AC/DC, probably 2008 or 2009. And man, I mean, it's AC/DC. You know, it was so loud. I even had earplugs, and I was at the literally nosebleeds. It was insane how loud it was, and I was like, man, this is so cool. And you could feel the bass rumbling, and I was just like, man, that like I always wondered what that felt like, and I didn't end up getting to it till later, but that made me want to just go out, just start playing, you know.
Yeah. So, man, ACDC, where was that at?
I think it was at the AT&T Center, or I don't
Man,
know if it was the SBC Center still or AT&T. But
yeah, one of those. Hell yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so that was like your first show, and you were you into music then? Like, were you just like a listener, or did you really like want to start learning, or did that maybe inspire you to start learning?
I had already been playing for a little bit at that time. I think I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school then, but before then, I'd say I got more into music and wanted to play music when I was probably like 9 or 10, because my dad's a huge Kiss fan and he collects a lot of memorabilia and things. He was buying a lot of like a bunch of replica guitars, kind of like eBay, you know, cheap ones, just to look cool. And he had this Gene Simmons Punisher bass that it was like somebody put the studs in there from like a belt, you know, those little whatever ones,
Yeah.
and it was just like whatever. And he had it, and I didn't know anything about tuning instruments or how to even play, but I just like I would pick it up and pretend I was Gene Simmons and Geezer Butler and whatnot. And I was like, man, this is really cool, and it made me want to like from then on, like I wanted to take it serious, but I was young and there's no internet, no like for me, I didn't know anything, so I just kind of would just like it was probably way out of tune, but I would just play on it, with my thumb. And I'm like, oh, cool, I'm a rocker.
Yeah, rocker fool. That's
Yeah.
cool, man. So your dad was real into you can go by my daughter. uh yeah, that's cool. Your dad was real into Kiss. My dad was really into Rush, and he kind of like and Pink Floyd, so I was kind of getting my fixes that way. So you had already been playing like, or you kind of doodling around, right? When did you start taking, I guess, or I guess when did you know that bass is like the instrument you wanted to play?
Hmm. Well, I always felt like I don't know what it was besides like how I was saying earlier that my dad, he had a lot of Black Sabbath tapes and AC/DC tapes. I don't remember what it was, but he had this Black Sabbath like live movie, and I was watching it, and you know how Geezer Butler always wears like the long black sleeves and he plays bass real low, and I would see his hands and the way he plays, how he doesn't anchor his hand and it's always floating. It just looked like he had like floating hands to me, and I don't know why I thought that was so cool. And I was like, man, that just made me like it even more. And on top of my dad having these, these replica bases around, I would throw on my, it sounds dumb, but I would throw on my jacket, just pick it up and just do whatever and be like, man, I feel like Geezer Butler. It's like seeing that was one of the things that made me want to, made me want to get into it, like in general. And just kind of all from there, like that just put me on a path to just going, man, even though I was, really bad for a long time. You got to
Yeah,
start somewhere.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Sabbath and Geezer Butler is like a perfect starting point. What was the first like Geezer line that you learned?
Man, I don't even know like in general, but I know the first baseline in general I ever learned was probably I think it was Breaking the Law by Judas Priest, because it
Yeah,
was roughly, I guess this is roughly in tune. And it was just right there, I think on the A string, and I was like that made me like even playing those, few intro notes, that made me feel like as a kid made me feel like, oh, like I'm doing it.
yeah, for sure,
At a
man.
young age.
Yeah, just writing the root note forever.
All day.
Yeah, man. Priest is so badass. Just even like that new like wave of British heavy metal kind of music. That's cool, man. When did you start wanting to like join bands or form any bands?
I would say probably when I was in middle school, I had friends that they would get together and they would play, and I would see videos of them, jamming, whatever, like Metallica songs and all that. And I thought that was cool. And I never really like met up with anybody or had friends that I would play with. I just kind of was just by myself at home. But I got on MySpace, and I saw a lot of, my MySpace band, like MySpace deathcore bands and hardcore bands. And so I learned about like the local scene, like here. And there's one band that I remember because I had a friend named John Michael, and he had a band called My City Underwater. And I had I had some of the members on MySpace, and I saw there's gonna be a show, and I was like, oh man, local shows. I didn't even cross my mind that was a thing. And I was like, man, I want to go to local shows to see this band called My City Underwater. And I wouldn't go for a few years, but slowly got into going to the White Rabbit that what I heard about from my friends. And that's when I I think it was on my 16th or 17th birthday, I went to a local show, some random show. But even just seeing all these bands, it was like all these death metal bands, deathcore bands, hardcore. There's bands of all types, and that just really, really made me want to play. That made me want to like, oh, I gotta find some guys that are interested in music. I didn't know what I wanted to play. I knew what I liked and the bands that I listened to, but as far as what I wanted to play, I wasn't sure. And I was like, man, I gotta get started. I gotta get in the scene somehow.
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's so cool you bring up MySpace because I think like, at least for us, that was a way to discover new bands. Like, I mean, like our parents had the radio and stuff, and they're listening, but we're just chilling on MySpace. Like, I don't know about you, but like I get sucked in to like find a band I like, and then who's like their top friends or whatever, their top friend bands, and just rabbit hole. Yeah, what's the first band what's your first band like where you played the rabbit with?
It was I had a friend that had like a little metalcore thing going on, which I wasn't super. I mean, metalcore is like there's like so many different types of it now, but like for me back then, like I would say metalcore. Like for me, I guess thinking about it now, like those metalcore types of bands, I would call All Shall Perish, which is like obviously a MySpace deathcore band. I'd be like, oh, metalcore, that whole style. And so my friend had that kind of band, and like I would hang out and they would be jamming. I would just be watching, and then they were gonna play a show and they needed a bass player. I think the band was called From Dreams to Nightmares with my friend Brian and my friend Dave. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm just as awkward, like 17, 18-year-old. I have a 6-string bass. You don't need 6-string basses for metalcore, but it's like, hell yeah. Got my Schecter, tuned it up to drop C or drop B. And that was those first bands started playing shows. We played Jam Stage, like the Jam Stage 5 o'clock, when people were still outside,
Yeah, I remember those days, man.
And it was still, even though it was probably like 5 or 6 people watching, when you play, it just was so cool. It made me, even though there was hardly anybody in there, it still felt like, cool, I'm doing something I want to do, no matter if it's like a bunch of people or little people. It was just badass, it was just really cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think the Rabbit did a really good job of just allowing like local band to start, even if it was like a 30 band bill or whatever. Like, it was cool. It just brought everyone there, and you made a lot of friends. Saw a lot of bands. Do you remember what gear you had when you played that show?
Definitely, I remember everything. So I had an Ampeg 810 that my dad and my grandma. I was super lucky. Like my dad and my grandma, they knew what I wanted to do. They knew I loved playing gear, so they would help me out with some of the stuff. So I had an Ampeg SVT Classic 300-watt tube head, and I had the matching 810 cab. And it was always cool to me. I was like, oh, that's when you watch a late night and you see the bass player, that's the stack. That's the iconic stack. So I had that. I had the MXR M80. You remember the little two knob bass distortion pedal, preamp pedal?
Mm-hmm.
I had that one, and I had my Schecter Stiletto Studio 6 string, and I had it strung up with a 5-string set of DRs. I don't know why I was playing DRs, but I think they were the neon ones or whatever that everybody used to, be super like, oh, they're neon, the green ones. Yeah. That was the rig, man.
Hell yeah. Man, it was like your gear has been phenomenal. Like, when did you start becoming like a real like gearhead?
I would probably say maybe around 2012 or so, because my friend Fry, we started we'd always been friends, and we started jamming together. And he would always have he'd be rotating through gear sometimes, and he'd have this cool 7-string, and then he would have another guitar, and then he would get rid of it. And I would ask him like, where do you get the guitars and stuff? And he got me into pawn shops. Like, oh, that's cool. So it started with going to pawn shops because he would find all these deals at pawn shops. And I'd be like, oh man, that's sick. Like, there used to be, you could find like the Ibanez 7-strings, like the budget ones that would go for like 300 new, 400 new. We find them for super cheap. And I'm like, man. So I started doing that. And it started from getting all these cheap guitars, getting them, flipping them. And then, you save up enough money and you can get some, a little bit more expensive. I wasn't like I am now where I see something and I'm like, let's go throw it on the credit card,
Yeah.
I would go to and you see, cool. This is a cool 5-string on the wall, man. It's got EMGs in it. I just started slowly. Yeah, I would say probably around 2013, 14 is when I started. I would get rid of a lot of gear and I just started buying, a couple of, expensive. I would buy new guitars because I was just buying a lot of used stuff. And then I would go to Guitar Center in Sam Ash and buy some, check out the new guitars and the new basses. It just spiraled. I mean, you probably see now I'm just getting stuff left and right.
Yeah, dude. Actually, when I talked to Seth, he brought up your Tosin Bossy guitar you just got. Yeah, everyone's drooling over it. Oh, here it is.
This one is
man, so nice. All right, I'll put you on the spot. What's your favorite piece of gear, or actually not gear? Let's go. What's your favorite bass or guitar that you've ever owned?
Oh man, let's see. I mean, I have different ones for different reasons, but probably I think my favorite bass I've ever owned was I forgot what series it was, but it's just a Squier jazz bass, like one of the 250. It was, I mean, I think now they're like 300, 350, but it was like 200 or 250 at the time. It was like a classic series jazz bass that my grandma got me a long time ago. And like I still play that. Like I have all these cool, I have, the Schecter, Ibanez, Kiesel, I have all this, but one of the ones that I play the most is still that little cheap Squier. The pickups barely work and the knobs, you get the when you're messing with the knobs. And it still has I never changed the strings on it. I've had the strings on it for a long time. It just sounds dead, but it's just, even now, like the stability of that instrument is insane for being how cheap it is. Like I'll keep it like in the super cold. It'll be really, really hot and that neck won't move. And it's like the perfect setup that I've been searching for since I started playing. Super low action, everything. It's had it the whole entire time. It just took me learning on all the other stuff to come back, to my original one and realizing, man, this is perfect. Like, and, being that my grandma passed away and everything, that's, she's a huge part of my life. So it's just like every time I look at it, it just reminds me of her and like where I was and, when I got it and stuff. It's just it'll probably always be my favorite. Like I always play it. I'll never get rid of it, no matter like how cheap it is. It's just super sentimental,
Yeah, that's an awesome story, dude. Yeah, my grandma was like a major part of my life too, so definitely supportive. So that's really, really cool to hear. So we'll get into a little bit of gear. I was watching that YouTuber Fluff, and he was talking about him recording like lower tuned songs, and he's like just using MIDI bass like when he gets pretty low. And he also mentioned using like a lower tuned bass, but then just pitch shifting even lower to adjust to the song. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about the technology that's like available now?
Yeah, man, it's crazy like how it is now, because you can have like a whole band set up and just be one guy at home, and you can make all these recordings. And when it comes to live, you can use tracks and all that, but it's just crazy. Like, especially when it comes to bass, like there's so many good bass, like MIDI bass plugins that sound good that it's like, oh man, it's like our gig is in jeopardy sometimes. These newer bands. But yeah, I've taken the same approach too, like to playing live, because I don't always want to, like, if I'm to play super low, I don't want to have to file down the nut, like on a particular bass, because then you can find like different blanks, and you can always, like nut blanks and stuff. You can always put like a new one on. But man, especially if you're gonna go like with a low tuning, a lot of times you got to go thicker strings, and that's a whole other thing for another day. But I mean, I've done the same thing too. Like I used to play with a band that played in drop E, like super low. And at first I thought about just playing a 5-string and using just my regular E string for that low octave, and either pretty much using a 5-string bass in standard with the low B and playing everything, I guess, backwards, like leading on the E and then going down for the B string. And I was like, oh, it's not really going to work. And I didn't want to put like a lot of guys go crazy and they'll use a super like freaking bridge cables,
Yeah.
But still like use like the 150s, 160s, and I didn't want to do that. So I would tune my basses to like drop A, and I would use like those pitch shifters, and I would go down kind of low, and it works. But I mean, there's nothing like better than having the bass tuned like as low as it can go. It's just, there's pros and cons to everything, and I just try to avoid that altogether. But I mean, there's many ways you can do it, but it's like whatever gets the job done. It's not. There's no like, oh, you use this or use the plugin. Like, how dare you? Like, I'm better than you. It's whatever. Yeah. It's about the art, the music. So whatever you need to do to get it, it's up to you.
Yeah, I agree. Do you feel that you've gotten into like that mentality as you've gotten older, like as an older musician? Because I remember I used to be like, oh, this dude's using a pick. You're not a bass player kind of deal. And then I was like, started using a pick. But like, do you feel like you grow into that mentality as you've been playing? Like, I guess we just realize it's about like the song necessarily, like what's most important to that.
Yeah. So I used to be super like when I was younger, because listen to Metallica, you listen to the first few albums, you're like, Cliff Burton didn't need a pick. You go, Jaco Pastorius didn't need a pick. It's like, it doesn't matter, man. It's all about, I mean, that's, if you want to be the guy that's like, oh yeah, like you see the death metal guys use their fingers, and you see the death metal guys use picks too. It's like, whatever you got to do to get the sound, It's like, are you really going to get that mud shovel bass tone with your fingers? You use a pick. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
I used to be a finger snob when I was younger. Like, oh, I would go to the rap. Even when I was playing shows, as like an 18, 19-year-old, see band, like, oh, he's using a pick. Who needs a pick? I'm like, man, honestly, I don't want to say it's easier, but like, depending on what you want to do, it's like you can do whatever you want, and it's just all about your preference, honestly.
Yeah.
As you get older, you're just like, do whatever you got to do. I remember back in my day,
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So an alternative to using picks like is double thumbing, and like there's people that double thumb that are like phenomenal, and that's Victor Wooten, Evan Brewer, and you. And I don't know how the hell you do it, but like you talk about your double thumbing and like how that came about.
Man, so I'd always been, I mean, watching like Victor Wooten videos and all the old DVDs and stuff. I've been seeing that he would do just the up and down thumb, which is what a lot of people do. I'm like, when I was younger, like all the harder things, be like, don't worry about that later. I'll do it later. And I started seeing how he would use his index and middle finger. I'm like, man, that's crazy. And I would just see it and be like, oh, same thing. I'll learn it later. But there's like this one video. It's like an instructional video that he has where he showed how he did it. And I started playing in this deathcore band at the time. And there's a lot of stuff where just sometimes doing like the Steve Harris. I'm not Steve Harris, man. I don't got the 2 fingers that free like 1,000 miles an hour. It's like I'll do the 3. Like, dude, it blew my mind when I found out that he gallops with 2 fingers. He doesn't use the 3. That's crazy. I can't do that.
Yeah,
that's too much. But like, I started doing like the galloping stuff. I'm like, oh, this is cool. But just for the fast stuff, you don't want to be going too fast or you don't want to be just like killing your forearms, man. So I'm like, I want to find an easier way. And then I remembered Victor Wooten does this thing. And Evan Brewer, same thing. He does that in metal. That's great. Like, to me, when I was younger, I would think, oh, you don't think slap. Oh, you used to think you do slap, you got to play R&B, you got to play funk. That's where it fits. But then I think it was Evan Brewer I saw that he's like using all these techniques for things that they're not normally associated with. And just the combination of Evan and Victor, that put me on a path to just, I'm going to do whatever I want, like no matter what kind of music it is. But I was just trying to play fast. I was like, okay, I'll just try this double thumping with your index and middle fingers. And I watched this video of Victor Wooten doing an instructional. And then I was like, okay, well, let me try this on one of my songs. And then I just sat there and I was just watching this video of him. I watched the same little 5-minute block of this video from, not even lying, probably about 6 or 7 hours, real late at night, because I'm just like a super late, up all night guy. So I was just sitting there and I practiced for, like, my arms were killing me. And, it's like you can practice something, and if you're not getting it or you're starting to get it, you put it down. And then you come back and then you kind of have it. You start developing that muscle memory. And I just kept at it over and over. And I figured out, like, I was lucky that I figured out, like, it clicked in my head, like, how to do it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to say it's easy because it's not easy, but, like, I figured it out. And then just every day just practicing, my same routines and just making all this stuff up. And then eventually, man, I'm just flying. Like, I mean, I can't take all the credit. It's like my guitar player, like Fry, and then our old guitar player, Kenny, from that band, man, they would just write these crazy riffs that I'm like, I'm not going to use a pick because I just like the way my fingers sound. I can play with a pick too. I just don't ever post videos of it, or I don't ever, I just keep, I'll say on the, and just practice, man. Like whatever anybody has that have to play, what's the easiest way to do it? And for me, no matter what it is, thumping is just the easiest way. So I just over years of just literally just sitting there, and, like, as generic as I say, just sit there watching TV and just repetition, man. That's just how you get it. I mean, just practicing, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Do you have any other like practice, like, workouts you do, or do you have like a set kind of like warm up you do, or is it just you're trying to learn a new technique and you just go to that technique?
Yeah, well, depending on what the technique is, I'll try and understand what the technique, like, say it was thumping, understand what it is, but I also don't learn techniques just for the sake of knowing them. It's like whatever technique I'm learning or using, I want to make it musical. You don't want to be like, oh, I know how to slap. And it's like, okay, cool, play something. You're like, well, I know how, but I don't know what to play. Other than that, I just do a lot of, like, before I play, so that way I don't fatigue myself out, I do a lot of, like, just hand stretching. And I'll show you. So what I do is, everyone goes like this, but I think it was on Low End University, Mark Michelle, who used to be in Scale Summit. I watched one of his videos and what he does. And he does, like, all these exercises like this. But one thing that I do that I saw in his video is, it looks kind of goofy, but I'll sit there and go like this, just for like 5 or 10 minutes, especially if it's cold. Just sit there and do that 5 or 10 minutes in any random motion, like, because for me, I used to have a lot of strain right here because I would tighten up, bad techniques when I was younger. So I'll just loosen it up and then just massage my hands. That's what I do more. I do a lot of that more than, like, actual techniques, but I just have, like, I'll just play random little exercises I just came up with in my head. I don't really practice the thumping thing because that comes pretty naturally to me now. It's almost like second nature, but I just do a lot of random, just noodling. It's not even musical. If we play it plugged in, it would sound like, Guitar Center, like on the weekends, everybody freaking mashing everything. But yeah, I just get the blood flowing, That's what I like to do.
Yeah, for sure, man. What's your favorite, like, bass riff you've ever written?
Well, it's more of like a tapping thing, but, like, in this deathcore band, I had this thing on my 6-string, where it's like during a breakdown, I would just do this little tapping, like, just goes up the fretboard across all the strings. I don't even know what I was thinking when I came up with it. It's just, I like to do a lot of tapping. I like to just, I know there's always, you never want to just be like, you come off if somebody just shows off. And I don't try to do that. I'm just like, I have like a shredder's mentality. So if I can make something cool, I'll put a little flashiness here. But I was super into tapping at the time. And I just came up with this little tapping thing. I think it was because I had learned Currency by Evan Brewer or something. And I was like, man, this is cool. I was like, man, I want to come up with something in the song. So I was just freaking just going, man. There's lots of little shreddy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, when you're performing too, like, you want to be a showman. Like, you understand your role as a bass player, but you can also do things a lot of other bass players can't do. So it's like, show it off, man. Do your thing. You had that video of Currency up on your YouTube, right? Your Currency cover. Man, I saw that. Like, I got into a real big Evan Brewer kind of phase, which I think probably a lot of most metal bass players will. I came across that. I showed John Michael. It's like, this dude can already do this. Like, I'm not gonna do this. Um, no, but that's badass. And so, speaking of YouTube, like you have a YouTube channel. So like, what's your YouTube channel all about?
Well, it used to be, man. Used to be kind of all over the place, but now I just want to post more gear videos or review videos. I'm not really the best when it comes to talking to a camera. Like when I'm talking to a person, talking to you right now, I feel fine. But when I sit there and record, I got red light syndrome, man. I'm like, So I just like to keep it to just the playing. I mean, I'll get over my fear of talking like to the camera at some point, but I want to put out a lot of bass videos where it's like you see, I watch a lot of bass like reviews. It'll be like a metal bass, and a guy will be like, okay, cool, and he'll just play funk over it. He'll be like, okay, it sounds cool. It's like, yeah, I want to be the guy that you see a bass. It could be a metal bass or not a metal bass. Like for me, it's like, does it metal? That's like my mentality because that's what I play the most. So I'm just starting to post more videos, or I've been recording stuff, but I'll get in my head about something and say, I don't want to post it. So I'll record 3 or 4 videos and be like, it's not good enough. I'll just leave it there. I just want to do it. But I want to post more like gear videos, like when it comes to the instruments, the plugins, the pedals, the amps, just all sorts of stuff. Slowly. I mean, I've had a YouTube channel. I've had a YouTube channel since I think late 2005, around when it started. My little brother, he's like, oh, there's this video website. And I was like, don't go on there, man. You're going to get a virus. This is like 15. But I've always been like big on YouTube and wanted to post stuff. But when I was younger, I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this instead of actually doing it. I would talk about it. But just lots of related stuff. I want to bring like, whenever you see questions of guys that are like, oh, well, does it sound good in low tuning? Can it do this? Can it play this? Like I can post on Facebook all day and you can post and say, oh yeah, it'll do that. Trust me. But you want to hear it. You want to see it. So like, I want to be able to bring that to videos.
Yeah, that's badass, man. I think you're the perfect person too, especially like with the gear and stuff you have, and you've been playing the talent. So definitely wish you well. That's gonna be badass. You're actually your video is the reason I bought a Bass Forge, because you did a video using with JST Bass Forge. Yeah,
Rex Brown.
yeah. Super badass. Sounds really great. So what's your mentality when you're writing new songs?
Well, see, with me, like I'm not the best songwriter or riff writer or anything. Like in my current band, Life Cycles, I'll contribute what I can as far as like guitar riffs. But I've always been more of like I've always like I'll hear something and I was think, oh, what would sound good underneath that? It's like, and a lot of the times like because Life Cycles is more of like a thrashy, straightforward. It's kind of, you don't really want to go too far away. You don't want to take away from what the song is. So a lot of times my mentality is, I'll play for the most part what the guitars play, and I'll change up some things here and there. Like say you have a guitar player playing this chord, I'm like, oh, I have a 5-string, I can play the lower octave. I'll just change up little things like that. But it's like I like to do some of the the shreddy stuff, like whatever. I can just hear things sometimes. Like I'll be jamming, say, oh, I want to try this out, and I'll just give it a go until I find the notes that I want. Most of the time, I just like to, even though it comes like I can be flashy and stuff when I play, for me, it's whatever fits the song. I just want to just sit in there and just do my job. It's because it's not about me. It's about the song in general. So I just like to, I know where my place is. So I just like to stick there. Kind of like the Judas Priest, how the bass player, like that Judas Priest effect where all these years, like you never hear any flash. He just freaking grooves, man. He just stands in the back and just rocks out. That's what I like to do for the most part, with a little bit of flashiness here and there,
Yeah, for sure. So when y'all write music, do your guitar players like already have riffs, or do y'all just kind of practice and come up with stuff on the spot?
A little bit of both. Like sometimes we won't, well, especially right now with whatever going on, I'm not gonna say the word, but
yeah,
with everything that's going on, like everybody will be at home and like I'll send one of my guitar players, a little clip of something, and then another guy will send to a group chat, like, oh, I came up with this. What do you think? And then when we were jamming all the time, just like practicing, you know, we'll try and come up with something, and be like, oh, I'm feeling this, or let's try and write this. And we'll just, sometimes it's cool to jam it out, but we can't always all be in the same room together. You know, you got 4 or 5 guys with different schedules. You got some overnighters, you got people doing, you know, who knows what all the time. So it's like a combination of both. And then sometimes we'll go into the studio with ideas and with riffs, and we'll go in there and we'll go in with a producer, with Chris Moore in this case, and we'll all together just come up with ideas, and we'll just, you know, just repeat things and just come up with stuff, you know, just throw everything at the wall and whatever sticks, you know.
Yeah, man, for
whatever,
sure.
Yeah, man.
So you talk about producer and Chris Moore, and Chris Moore is like amazing. When did you start like recognizing that you could like go to producers for like help or ideas, or like when did that become a realization? Because I know, at least for me, like I've always been like, oh, like we're doing it ourselves, but you get the opportunity to go into a studio or work with someone, and like they've been doing it for a while too, and their ideas are also like helpful and stuff like that. So when did that become like a realization for you that you could also kind of reach out for opinions or help, or however you want to put it?
For me, it was probably 2014. Yeah, same thing. I had always, you know, record the demos ourselves, or with a friend who has FL Studio or something. We're just gonna record. Oh, it's cool, and we just go to him. He hits record. We do whatever we want, and then boom, we're done. But with one of my bands, with Chris Moore, we went to go record, and I was, you know, just when it came time for me to do my bass lines, I'm like, okay, cool, I want to try this, or I'm gonna record this. You know, was getting the feedback like, oh, what if you change this? What if you did this? And I'm super hard headed. I'm like, no, I want it how we want it, how we want it. I want to do it like this. Just hit record. You know, you think you go to a producer. That was a wake up call, man. Like, you think you go to a producer, we're gonna pay you this much money, and you hit the record button, and then we go away and you hit magic buttons and it sounds how we want it. You know, it's not how it goes all the time, you know. And so I'd be like, oh, I want to do this, you know, throw in suggestions, and I'm super hard headed at the time. And I, you know, get into arguments. And then my guitar players are like the in between. They're like, oh man, well, calm down. We're trying to do this. And eventually, you know, when you let I don't know why I felt like I had maybe like some ego issues or something, but once you let that go, man, like I said, it's about the end product. It's about the music, the creation. So it's like whatever you got to do. If you got to change up some parts, or you got to take advice, or you got to collaborate with your producer, like it's just going to make for a better product, like overall at the end.
Yeah. So this is something I didn't send you. So this is going to be a fun conversation. We're talking about like, you know, music and using producers, coming up with everything that makes your song good. Some people that also like really need like a good song is pro wrestlers, right? Their entrance music could make or break them sometimes. Who's your favorite? What's your favorite wrestler's theme song? Or
Oh
what's your
man,
favorite theme song, wrestling theme song?
yeah, favorite wrestling theme song. Oh man, I was prepared for this one. Like there's different time periods, different eras. Like, but for me, one of my the first like wrestling theme song, hearing it in person, going to wrestling as probably like a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, was Gangrel, the Brood theme song. How evil was, dude? And then they came up with a fireman. Whew, that was
Yeah.
awesome. But probably one of my favorite theme songs, like of all time, has to be Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat. Like, I mean, it's my favorite wrestler, man. There's so many good ones, man. Like you could just go down the rabbit hole. Be like, oh, Shawn Michaels, that was a good one. Kurt Angle, look. I mean, it's simple, but I would probably have to go honestly with the Eddie Guerrero though. Eddie Guerrero theme, that Latino Heat one.
Hell yeah. Eddie Ghetto's, oh man, so good. And maybe for people who don't know, which if they follow you, there's absolutely no way they don't know you're just a wrestling
Oh, yeah.
fan. I mean, you can see in the background.
Yeah, and then I'm wearing. I don't know if you watch it. I got the Abaddon shirt on.
Hell yeah. I don't have cable, so I don't watch it too much, but I'm pretty familiar with a lot of those wrestlers. Um, so Okay, another wrestling theme song. What's your favorite theme song that's been like that a band has created? So something like CM Punk or something. You know, he had Kill Switch for a while, then a Cult of Personality. Like, what's your favorite theme song that a band has created that a wrestler's used?
I think probably what's the song called? Kane's theme from when he was maskless, Slow Chemical or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know who sings that one. That's a good one. I think Aleister Black had the Incendiary song, right? That's another good one. Yeah, same thing. There's been so many good ones. CM Punk with the Kill Switch, which was also Randy Orton's theme song for one show before it was CM Punk's, I think.
I think you're right. I think I saw that somewhere.
So many good ones, man.
Wrestling's so good. Are you AEW over WWE?
I don't think so, because I've been going to WWE, WWF shows since I was a kid. It's like one of my first memories ever was being at a WWF. Like I think it was one of the house shows leading up to, I forgot what pay-per-view it was, where it was Triple H versus Cactus Jack. They were doing the street fights back in the 90s. So I went to a house show, and that's like one of my first memories, being at this show and hearing Cactus Jack's theme song. I mean, that's always been my thing, but with AEW, it feels more, because it's newer, and like I've been to a bunch of AEW shows. I think last year, like when they started, man, I went crazy. Like I had sold a bunch of my guitars. I was just with my credit cards buying tickets left and right. I was going out of town for all these freaking shows, man. But like, I mean, I'll always be a WWE guy because that's what I grew up on. And I watched others throughout the year. Like I watched Ring of Honor. I've watched Impact. I went to Impact shows. I watched TNA. I watched a lot of stuff. But I mean, I grew up on WWE. But I love AEW for the wrestling, and I like WWE for like the storylines. Even though sometimes they're not the best, but there are some good ones sometimes, you know. And you know, they've been in business for a long time. You know, everyone's got their flaws. There's a lot of issues. People always complain about this and that, but at the end of the day, it's just about entertainment, and like that's one of my favorite forms of entertainment. It's like live music and pro wrestling, since I was a little kid, have been my absolute favorite.
So you have the opportunity to record a theme song for one of your favorite wrestlers or any wrestler. Who do you pick? Whose theme song are you writing?
Let me see. Are we going any wrestler in any company?
And just any wrestler in any company.
Man, I feel like Will Ospreay we can make him. I would love to make him the most upbeat, just heavy, bang your head metal song like ever. What do they call him? The aerial assassin, right? Is that him, or am I getting confused? But, man,
I think you're right. Yeah, New Japan.
Yeah,
Hell
that would
yeah.
be sick.
Yeah, that's also like, that would be like a dream, just to have a wrestler's theme song. That'd be real tight.
Awesome, man. Like that's how with my friends in Cold Casket, like they have some heavy songs, man. And we'd always joke, like Xavier and I would always joke, like some of their songs, like the choruses, they sound like they would be the intro to like an old WWF show, you know?
Hell yeah, like Union Underground or something.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So let's see. What are some of your favorite like memories playing here in the local scene?
I would have to say probably like when I started playing shows, I think around 2011, just playing shows in general. The local scene back then was insane. Like, and I know it was like just as good before, but when I came in and started playing shows with my first couple of bands, man, you would have a local show at the White Rabbit. There would be hundreds of people. Like there's videos on YouTube from some of those shows back then, and you would see like maybe like 300 or 400 people for a local show, you know? And like some of these, you know, big local bands had the same fan bases that you would see with like big, you know, national artists. So like some of my favorite like memories were just either just local shows that were just super packed, like from start to finish, because you would have those 20, 30 bands. So everybody would bring, you know, their 5 or 10 people. I want to see this band. I want to see this band. At the end of the night, everybody's hanging out. Just a bunch of young kids wanting to, you know, hear heavy music. It was a lot of hardcore, a lot of deathcore. It was just a lot of everything back then. and just good times, man. You're even opening the shows for some of the touring bands. There'd be so many people. It was just good times, man. It's not what it used to be, you know.
Yeah. I feel that, man. What do you think happens after this pandemic, you know? Like what do you think the music scene, like the future is for like the local music scene or the music scene in general?
I think once everything is safe and once on a bigger spectrum, mainstream, like everybody is like more safe, people are more relaxed and more comfortable with going to shows. I'm hoping and I think that it's gonna be awesome and it's gonna start to feel like how it used to. Because I mean, I feel like we all took it for granted, like being able to, I'm just gonna go to this show. I'm gonna go to the AT&T Center. I'm gonna go see Metallica. I'm gonna see Deftones. I'm gonna see all these big bands or even local shows. Oh, you're just gonna get together with your friends and we're gonna go to this local venue. We're just gonna hang out and see all these bands. You know, it's just not happening right now. I mean, there's bands that are still, playing shows here and there. You know, big bands, local bands, but just like to that level that it was before. I think everybody wants to get back to that, you know, so everybody's excited. And I think that once everything starts happening again, once people start playing shows, like I think it's just going to be I think it's going to start booming again, like how it was beforehand, because, you know, it's just, we just don't have live music right now, and you know how we want it.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm ready for a show in front of people. Like we've done a live stream show, and while it's fun, it's not the same. It's not the same getting like that energy. Um, so we can start rapping a little bit. Where can people follow you on social media?
So I mainly use Facebook and Instagram, and I have YouTube also. And it's on Facebook, it's just my name, Christopher Sanchez. But on Instagram, YouTube, and like I think Twitter and everything else is just Wanted Peak. It's just that across everything, and I'm pretty active, you know, everywhere. Like I try to be as much as anyway.
Where did that name come from?
It's kind of funny. Like it came from, I think back when the Xbox 360 came out, I wanted to play on Xbox Live, and you had to create a gamer tag. And I was like, okay, well, let me come up with a name. And I wanted to use Pegasus Kid, which used to be Chris Benoit's name. Like when he wrestled, he was, I think, Pegasus Kid, or he had a bunch of different names like that were similar to that. And I was like, okay, cool. And I tried to type it in, and it wasn't available. And back then, I think I remember on the Xbox, it gave you the option, like you could type in, bass player 93. They'll say, it's not taken, but it gave you suggestions. And it gave me suggestions, and it said, or you could generate a random one. So I clicked generate, and it had a list, and I was like, man, I want to play Call of Duty. So I didn't care what it said. So literally the first one, it just said Wanted Peak. I didn't even know I just clicked on anything, and I was like, I'll change it later, you know? And I just clicked on that, and it's just been my gamer tag, and I've just been using that as my, username for everything since. It literally doesn't mean anything at all. It's just too random. People ask me, what does that mean? They're trying to say, what does it mean? Or you're talking about this and that. Was like, it doesn't mean anything. I wanted to play Call of Duty, so I picked a random name.
Yeah, Xbox gave it to me. Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, it was nice talking to you. I'm excited to see some new content that you're going to be putting out on YouTube, to hear some new music. And yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to say or want to plug your bands, anything?
Yeah, I'll say, well, thanks for inviting me on. And also, my band Life Cycles, we've been recording music, and we're not sure when we're going to put it out. Hopefully soon. We're looking to put out some new songs, man, some freaking headbangers, so you can be standing at the bar and just freaking doing the headbang, you know?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, check out Life on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Soon. That's all I can say. Just soon.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. It was nice talking to you, and we'll definitely catch up again, dude.